Warning, this podcast typically features spoilers and strong opinions. Proceed with caution. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Then a Moment, the podcast where two lifelong storytellers talk about stories. I'm Pavi Proczko, resident audiobook narrator, writer, actor, singer, etc.
And I'm Colin Funk, a childhood development expert and teaching artist.
And today we're going to be talking about the gay and wondrous life of Caleb Gallo.
Yes, it's a mouthful.
It is a mouthful, and it is quite obscure.
Yes, it is a mini-series on YouTube.
I'm very excited about it, actually, because was kind of when in this podcast was like the nascent idea was about kind of bringing up these more niche pieces, and especially ones that, you know, have display really interesting like storytelling tactics and work really well.
Yeah, I think this is a great example. It's
a hidden gem.
Very interesting. But first,
yes,
we'll do Moments of the Week.
Let's do it. My moment of the week, we're watching the entirety of The Simpsons.
Yes.
Now, finally.
We're studying.
We're studying, yeah. And we love Futurama, and it's just like more, we just miss it always. I do, at least. And so it always felt so daunting, but we've actually dove in. And I'm, one, surprised how much I remember. And two, I love it. It's really good.
It's actually very good.
But my moment of the week is when Ned Flanders has his freak out.
Oh my goodness. Oh yes.
And he's like, he loses his cool finally because he's like repressed all his anger. He starts like freaking out at everyone. And the tirade is brilliant. It's hilarious. I love it.
It is ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
Is that it?
That's it. That's my moment. No,
Great.
That's my moment. He has
Awesome.
this crazy tirade, and it's very funny.
Cool. My moment. So, my company that I work for, Stage of Chicago, we have done a lot of education for kids, but we had our first book musical, like we do musical theater education. But this is the first time we actually did a full book musical with the kids. And of course we do it in our own way where we are education first, and if we're teaching them, we're going to give them each their own piece of the show.
Yep.
And pieces of the show are split up by class, and it's not just cast in a traditional way. So the many classes got together and did Annie Jr.
Mm-hmm.
Very cute. There was 58 children in it.
Oh my God.
And the characters kept changing who was who. So it was like, it's this mostly controlled chaos, certainly some chaos, but it was very cute. And I just thought it was just like very sweet to get to see so many kids shine in lots of different ways. Yeah. There was there was a reprise of Little Girls, and I swear the tiniest girl that we have in class is just like walks up after the scene and is like, seems very nervous, and then is like belting out about going to the nut house with the nuts and the squirrels. Oh my God. It was like literally applause every time. It was so exciting. Just a couple moments in there like that. And there's a little sweet little solo for, I think it's the Maybe reprise at the end. Oh my gosh, it was so sweet. And then just like the Tomorrow reprise, there was this one girl at the end who just like knew she was getting it, and like again garnered applause. Oh my gosh, the kid who played Mr. Bundles, I've known him since he was like an infant baby. He's so cute. But he's, oh my gosh, so cute. And he just, like, some of these kids are just sassy and like, but playing Mr. Bundles and just like flirting up a storm and just like massive laughter. It was very sweet. And I don't teach any of those classes. So I just got to help out on the day running the sound, and that's it. That's all I did. So I just got to sit back and watch, and it was so sweet.
That's cute. I just imagine like a room full of people singing Tomorrow in Annie wigs. It's just
no wigs. Actually.
No wig.
They
Good.
just didn't do. I mean, I can't imagine them switching wigs.
Yeah, I love
my
show that is like kid centric and full of kids. It's just there's always something like really touching and heartfelt about it.
Yeah, it's pretty easy to get to to have us feel something. I mean,
Annie, Matilda, all those. It's just like, wow.
Oh my gosh, yeah, Matilda. Oh,
That's nice. Yeah, great. Well, let's get to it.
Let's do it. Yeah, why don't you give us a little synopsis of this this little mini series?
Yes, The Gay and Wondrous Life of Caleb Gallo.
Yes.
So Caleb Gallo, he's an actor in LA, and he's looking for love of some kind.
Sure. If you can call it love.
If you can call it that. They toy with that, interestingly. Though he's uncertain about, monogamy and many of his relationships. He's kind of traditional relationships. Yeah. He's a little uncertain about all of it. But a recent romantic fling he's had, Benicio, wants to make their long-distance relationship official and exclusive.
Oh, yes.
So this is where
while
we're
they're long distance.
Yes, while they're long distance. So we get kicked into this story of Caleb and his kooky actor friends. And Caleb agrees, confident that he can commit, but he ends up going too far with his straight friend, STR8, someone who he's had kind of this crush with, a crush on for a while. And when the opportunity presents himself, he hooks up with him. And of course, that complicates things because Benicio announces that he's going to be visiting real soon. So Benicio comes to spend time with them, and they have all these hijinks and conflicts about their relationship. But in the end, when Benicio is about to be deported because he's in the country illegally from the UK, and he's about to be deported, Caleb kind of has to, confront those weaknesses and repair his relationships and lock it down in order to make him stay. So he ends up proposing, and then he has to resolve all of these conflicts that he's kind of created in his life,
right,
in order to keep the loves that he has.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's a short miniseries. It's five episodes. And what did you know about it
before seeing it the first time?
Yeah.
Which was a few years ago. We had watched it.
So it came out in 2016.
Yes. And I had seen a few. It's Brian Jordan Alvarez is the writer, creator. And he's done other sketches on YouTube. So I've seen some of his...
He was also on the revival of Will and Grace.
Yes, he was on the revival of Will and Grace.
Jack's eventual husband in that. Yes.
Yeah, the flight attendant, the Latino flight attendant. I had seen some of his sketches.
Oh yeah,
on YouTube,
especially among actor people. I think
actor people, gay people. It was very gay centric. There's a very funny one where there's unspoken gay language where it's all the gays meet in the stairwell and they're all doing these weird looks, and then they all end with brunch. They all had this huge conversation, but it was no words. It's very silly.
Words. It's very funny. It's excellent.
Who can forget Emile? It's the best
that's another,
sketch.
I mean, maybe we'll do
we'll have to do a whole episode on that one because that one's so good.
I don't think that one's as well known.
No, I don't think so either, but it's the best one.
I think it's amazing.
But so I'd seen that. Otherwise, you had shown me one clip because you kept saying this one line.
Which one was it?
You kept saying.
Oh yes, I remember. Yes.
Sometimes things that are expensive are worse.
Excellent.
It's such a good line. And so you showed me the whole sequence, and it's one of the most brilliant sequences.
Oh, it's YouTube
so good.
gold. It is gold within the series. It is storytelling gold. It's it's so good. This clip, and
it is so silly.
Specify it.
We will. We'll go through it. I wonder if we'd be able to get a clip of it on the show.
Maybe, yeah.
Maybe it's all on YouTube.
Let's do it.
So we can get that in there because it's so good.
Colton gave us a thumbs up, so if it doesn't get in there, we're blaming him.
So other than that, I didn't know anything about it. So then going in, it was all of a complete surprise to me what this story was about. What did you know? Did you know before?
I mean, I had watched it before you.
Yeah.
I watched the whole I mean, it's short, so I had seen the whole thing. I found it, I don't know. I mean, I think I did like a rabbit hole of his videos because they're so funny. I mean, I loved Emil doesn't realize he's being offensive, as I believe what the other YouTube video is called. But I came across the web series and I was so enamored so quickly. I think part of what it was is like I got so sucked into that kind of brand of comedy. There's like a whole group of them that have their own videos, and I feel like they've like developed this brand of comedy. And maybe there's like groundlings.
Maybe it's something like that because it is a really interesting style to it.
It's like clearly these like comedian improviser actors.
Yeah.
That like all kind of have their own little web sketches and series of their own. And so I had been kind of like obsessed with a bunch of them, and I came across this and I was very quickly enamored, and I think I watched them very quickly. And I was like, these are so good.
Yeah. I saw one of the videos had, I think the first episode has 1 million views.
Does it?
In 7 years? Yeah. It came out 7 years ago.
The first episode, I just looked at it, and it was re-released like 3 years ago.
Oh, wasn't well.
Like the first one itself. I don't know if
cut that. No, I was one of them at least. We were watching. I saw it. So it was like 7 years ago, 1 million views. Yeah. So it's like he's gotten a lot of traction on it.
So it's
over time.
I guess it's not the most obscure thing that we could be talking about, I guess.
Sure, but I mean,
YouTube
even that, it's like considering 7 years to only 1 million. It's consistent. It gets consistent views.
Yeah, but like following gay YouTube, and he was like connected to some of the like, it was kind of around the time that like young actors were watching little young actors doing things on YouTube, and, you know, coming from when we were in college, and all the musical theater people just watched other musical theater people on YouTube singing the same 7 new musical theater songs.
It was during the time when all us actor people were watching all of these videos and of other actors doing stuff and with aspirations of doing that ourselves, maybe.
I don't know, maybe. Or like jealousy or
a little bit of all of it.
Or like just like fascination at the like, because there's like, I mean, there's that hunger. There's like, what can I do? What can I? What?
Well, I'm as good as that.
Yes, a lot of that.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I had just like, he was around. They were around.
Yeah.
Like they felt familiar. And like you said, the one actress, the main actress in Caleb Gallo, Stephanie Koenig. However you pronounce her last name.
Koenig, not sure.
Like all of them have kind of like gotten little parts and other things. Like she was in The Flight Attendant and was an interesting side character. It was the second season, right?
First season.
First season?
Yeah. Gets thrown out the window.
Spoiler.
Sorry.
I'm not talking about
what's all spoilers? We get an alert at the beginning of every episode that there's spoilers.
That's true, but they're getting spoilers for
well,
this thing,
you proceed with caution.
You're right.
So I want to, there's some things that I've been like talking about in my writing classes that I think are really interesting here. I'm curious about kind of who is it for this story? Especially considering like the style and like this point of view that it has. It's mostly through Caleb's eyes. We do see some moments without him.
Yes.
But it's like mostly emphasis is on his journey. And I'm curious like who he's talking to and Like who is like the person kind of telling the story and who's the person receiving it as kind of like this imaginary conversation that would be happening between two people.
Yeah. Do you have any?
So
what are your thoughts?
I know that I found it really interesting to his relationship with that like straight friend seemed really familiar. How many people I've seen have kind of this weird relationship, a gay person with this straight person who just always kind of yanks them along a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, they keep them at arm's length, and they're always kind of like toying with the idea that maybe they're interested. Maybe it's like, oh, well, if I was, you'd be the one. And it just seemed so familiar that like the straight guy liking that attention.
Yeah. It's like it took things in gay culture and made them very archetypal.
Yeah.
This relationship between the first episode, if we're talking about archetypes, these pieces of gay culture, it's like they straight up have his straight female best friend calls him and is like, I need you to come over and essentially be the gay best friend to turn off this guy that's
but
here.
I just slept with him and he needs to leave.
So he can go.
Yeah, you need to be the annoying gay friend. Yeah.
And they literally just use that to their advantage.
Yeah, they use these tropes, and it's
like it sets it up even like right at the beginning.
Yeah,
that they're not even like they're not taking it seriously.
Right, and there's an interesting thing there too because they use a lot of language that's really heightened. They talk about love. They celebrate. They say things, but it's just kind of to fill the space. It's that on-actor thing.
So I have a theory about that.
Oh, okay. Tell me. What is it?
Oh.
I can finish my thing in a minute. What's your theory?
Well, okay. So because it's a miniseries.
Yeah.
These people are used to, it feels like short form improv mostly. Like all of this feels like they understand this like short form improv, and they're doing this miniseries where it's a story in a short amount of time. I mean, it's like a full series, like it's full 5 episodes and they're like about 20 minutes each. So they're not like short episodes, but like a lot happens quickly.
Yeah.
And so they do that using specific tropes, specific, devices, I guess. And I feel like one of the things that they were playing with is using this idea of the young actor in LA as kind of as kind of an archetype, but the drive in them, it's not, I feel like to get away from having all of these complicated or complex feelings and relationships, instead of being afraid to talk about them, which is like a very common human thing to do, there's not a fear about the talking about them. They're not afraid to speak. They're afraid to mean what they say.
Yeah.
They're not afraid to say things. They're afraid to mean those things.
It's like a sneaky kind of faux vulnerability. I'm so present and I'm so here and I'm so reactive, but that's different than vulnerable.
Yeah, and they use this like, they allow things to be said and be said quickly. And I think that might be, it's their comedy style.
Yeah.
It feels very improv. We're not waiting for a lot of, it's very word heavy.
Yeah.
Like they are talking, whether or not the words themselves mean anything.
Right.
It's the actual relationship and the way that they're communicating that is doing something. And so a lot of the times they say things and either they straight up don't mean them or say them in a way where they can, they can say like, I didn't actually mean it because of the way I said it. Like they say so many things and so many ridiculous things. There's this doubt that they can use later.
Right.
They can hide behind it. That's their, instead of like
Yes.
not saying it, being like, well, I never said that. It's like,
right. It's like the ease with which, I know that connects to what I was talking about, that
Exactly.
it's like that ease with which they talk about the way they love each other. So it just seems like it is, 5 years down the line, married Caleb, say, talking to someone who has that same kind of disingenuousness or is hiding things, is hiding from the relationships, and is like telling someone, get your relationships in order.
yeah.
Be honest with them because you do love them. And don't just say it because you're like, oh, I love you. Oh, I love you. Don't be so casual with it because it actually does mean something.
Yeah, but it's funny because it also allows them to say things they really mean and not avoid it.
Yeah, but it's always with the question of like, wait, do you mean it? I'm not sure. So they get to express these things,
But
and
even
they're
when they know that they're like, when that's even when that's implied, there's still some back and forth where they're like, we know that you're saying it for real.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm joking about it. I'm saying it with a smile because it's a joke. And everyone's like, we know
no,
it's not
you're
a
freaking
joke.
out. Yeah.
But like, they're able to do it because they have like, it's like a weird superpower that goes both ways.
That's really interesting. Yeah, so there's like a conflict there then with like that kind of in genuine like vulnerability and disingenuousness, and kind of like where to find the balance between kind of that casualness with your friends and joking and
because sometimes they're very blunt.
yeah,
Sometimes, but they have the ease of talking.
right.
Where they're like, I want to sleep with that person. I like where they can.
Like, oh, I'm in love with him. I'm kind of sort of in love with him.
Yeah.
It's like just, and he kind of is. It's kind of true.
It's kind of true.
Right.
So
he
there's
talks
like
about that
all
with
these like
Benicio. He
half-truths.
talks about that with Billy, his straight friend, where he's like, yeah, I'm kind of in love with both of them.
But because it's become this casual speech, he's allowed to not fully commit to those feelings.
Yeah. If I say everything on my mind, then it sucks the power out of all of it and the weight.
If I take all of the meaning away from it, if it's all this kind of silly fun, like even in that first, that first scene is like a great setup where in that conversation where she's asking him to like come and be the gay best friend, like he says like, oh, and then we'll do this thing. And she says something like, I love that. And he's like, did you mean that? She's like, no, I would have said that either way.
I would have said that no matter what you said. Yeah.
It's brilliant.
It's really interesting. That actually, I think, sheds a little bit light on Benicio as a character. So the lover that now wants to have this, exclusive long distance relationship and then ends up coming to visit.
Yeah.
He is the only one that is genuine kind of the whole time. He doesn't speak in that language that everybody else does. He's a departure from it.
You're right. He does speak what's on his mind, though.
He does. Yeah, he does it differently.
He is not afraid to speak what is on
He
his
is
mind.
not afraid to speak what's on his mind, but he is
But he's
100% earnest.
Yes.
And so it's interesting
Different quality,
seeing
for sure.
Caleb coming from this one world of, his actor friends where they're just kind of like joking and being all improv-y, and then moving into his conversations with Benicio and kind of being as extreme and as dramatic.
Yes.
He's so melodramatic about, oh my God, I love it. I love these. And he's like so dramatic with his language that I wonder if even he gets lost.
Yeah.
He gets lost and is like, wait,
so.
do I mean it?
Yeah, he doesn't know.
He doesn't actually know.
It's like this actory thing. And I do think there is like a commentary, like you were talking about, who's the audience, who is this for? Like it feels very much like an exploration of the culture and the people he's around.
Yeah.
And
It's like he's saying like actors, be careful not to get, at what point is it
Who knows if
appropriate
he's
to,
actually-
right. There, I don't know if there's something prescriptive, but it's like the problem being like, I don't know if I'm real.
Right.
I don't know if any of this is real. Well, I'm going to try to mentor you through this and to guide. I don't know what the answer is, but here's a story I've got for you because it's complicated. Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I want to talk about some of the individual characters too.
Yeah.
Because I think that's a really good frame through which to talk about the story, because like the events of the story, I basically gave you what the story was in the synopsis, but there are interesting kind of side plots and characters that get introduced, and I think they all work, but I'm not even sure why they do.
In like the stories themselves?
Yeah, or it's like we have so we've got Lenjamin McButtons.
McButtons.
That's the best character name.
That is name, yeah.
Lenjamin McButtons, Freckle, Karen, Billy.
Sister's name Tatiana?
Oh, Tatiana, yeah. Let's say Tatiana. She's kind of like a minor character that gets brought in. They're
It's like episode 4.
Episode 4, yeah, of 5.
Yeah.
And she's Caleb's sister. They're both adopted. And it's like a very funny exchange. She's so ridiculous. She's so silly. But she was an actor and then like now is a shaman or something.
Yes. Yes.
But
she got caught shoplifting. And so no one wants to hire her. And
right. So it's like
she's a shaman now.
Right. Bringing up all these tropes. But why is she even in the story? Like beyond, well, she's obviously part of that group of friends. And they wanted to make a character with her.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I feel like in each episode they keep pulling in more of their relationships. It gets more,
because it is a relationship with Caleb, right?
It becomes rounder. Yeah. It becomes more community.
Yeah, because we start with just Caleb, Karen, Billy, and then we see Benicio a little bit on FaceTime calls.
Yes.
And Freckle.
But even Freckle was after Len.
Yeah, Len's first, I think.
First.
Len calls first and says he's bi. I've decided I'm going to be bi. It's interesting. Like he's seeing like these relationships that he's like kind of like matchmaking a little bit, or how he's kind of like dealing with these. Yeah,
living vicariously through.
And it's showing who he is to all these people.
Yeah.
So we've got Len calls and it says he's the first person basically to know. Len trusts him. He's going to call him and going to hook him up with Freckle, gender fluid goddess, who, because he wants to experiment with gender fluid people now. Yes. And it's so weird.
Dip my toe into
bisexuality.
Gender fluid people.
It's so stupid. Because he heard that, he read in Forbes magazine or something that bisexuals are more successful. But it's like he plays this like mentor role sort of, or like a guide role to Len, or he's like a older brother sort of.
He's the kind of like Sherpa. He's the...
Yeah. And then it's weird that in the end, Len's the one that kind of like stops everything. And it's like, hey, we're all arguing. Stop. We all love each other. He's the one to do that.
Yes.
Then we've got Freckle,
who
feels like more of a shaman than Tatiana, but she's like this kind of otherworldly, outside of it all, figure that we get to see. Kind of, I don't know if they're all just foils of each other. Kind of. But it's clear that Caleb has a profound impact on all of these people's lives.
Sure.
He sets up these dates that don't go well between Billy and Karen and Freckle and Len, and then he ends up hooking up with Billy, and that ruins kind of a hookup with Karen, that like Billy's relationship there, and it also ruins Benicio and
this like web. I think that's exactly why that there's so many different characters and why so many characters get woven in at different times. Because even in the last episode, they throw in
parents.
this like parents, but that's not even the love interest of Karen.
Oh,
who's
Karen's
like,
new love interest.
just not new.
No, yeah,
technically.
right.
Just a long distance one that she's been having
Yeah.
that we didn't know about till the last episode, and
Right.
just like weirdly throws a wrench into it. But the point is, like, I think it's to, it's to show. One of the things I think they're exploring is relationships, just generally how they can look in different ways, and how, like, I mean, that's one of Caleb's big problems is, like, does he want a traditional relationship?
Right.
He says, I think who knows how serious he is, I guess
Right.
is the point. But at one point he sends Benicio a card that says something like, I didn't think I wanted a marriage and kids until I met you.
Right.
And I think it's kind of a surface level thing, but there's probably a truth to that.
There's a question.
The same coin, like he says straight up, like, I don't believe in monogamy.
Right.
Like he turns down the advance of the third of a thruple of his college advisors.
College advisor, the silliest minor characters.
So silly.
But
again,
I think even that, it's like more complex relationships. These
more non-traditional relationships.
Yeah, and this web that it's like, how many people do we touch?
Yeah,
and it's like this.
And how many of these relationships are actually real?
Mm-hmm.
And how many that might be traditional aren't that real?
Right.
Can you love two people at the same time? Can you not understand your sexuality? And there's just like complicated things that they're exploring. And on top of that, like it's because of those complicated relationships, they still have woven together this community. Similarly to Fire Island, it's like the gay found family.
Yeah.
It's the chosen family, not the parents are. I mean, Tatiana is there as is his sister, but that relationship's complicated too.
Right. They all know each other. They all know her, and they're all part of it. But she's complains that he's never around, and so he's got that impact on her.
They're very non-traditional, and
the whole family is non-traditional.
Yeah,
right?
Both of them had been adopted, like we said.
They're both adopted. The parents are Republicans. They're and the dad is like, and I'm conservative, but the dad too is like all super into meditation. Like he ends up like having that conversation of he's like
very short. These are like,
it's so weird.
That's
like
the thing
little
about this whole mini series. It happens so quickly that like this podcast is going to be longer than the whole thing.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's like that.
So much happens in
that
so
micro,
little time.
Not even micro storytelling, but it's like how few words can you use to make the thing happen? And it's just as robust. It reminds me very much of Adventure Time. We might have to do a full Adventure Time episode.
I think we need to.
Because it's like that. You watch an episode of Adventure Time or an episode of Caleb Gallo, and you're like, oh my God, 100 years have gone by.
Yeah.
So much just happened, and I don't feel gypped. I don't feel like we skipped anything.
Well, and I think part of that is because they're just packing it with words. They're packing the short amount of time with words, and they're just like, even if they're not saying it sincerely, or like, even if it's a sincere thing that they're saying, they're not saying it sincerely. They're still saying a lot of the things that are in their brain.
Yeah.
We don't have to infer a lot. They're just telling us.
Right.
And honestly, just like the brilliance of some of them, especially Stephanie, I think is a brilliant.
So good. They're all very good on screen.
They're incredible.
They're all so good on screen.
I never did any film acting stuff.
Yeah.
And it's a whole other...
It's a different animal. Totally different. And it's interesting because I remember noting that when watching Flight Attendant and when watching even Will and Grace, it's like, oh, that's not actually their ideal... That's not their ideal perspective.
Like those shows that they were on.
Didn't
highlight them
in the way... Like they read really well on screen, when they're like really close up and in these particular perspectives. And you don't get that. Will and Grace is a studio audience sitcom, so you're not going to get that.
So I think that's a part of the other piece of why I think it works is that they just utilize the style that really works for them.
Yeah.
It is, the brand of comedy is very specific to them, I think.
Yeah. It's so funny. Oh my gosh.
It's so funny. It's so quick. And they are so good at being very real while saying a lot of things very quickly.
Yeah.
And
within the confines of this ridiculous world.
Yeah. They also use like cliches and tropes.
Yeah.
And I feel like that was like paying homage to 80s movies. There was this
bit
underlying feel, like this whole montage where like after this big blow up between,
I'm gonna go take a bath, and Caleb's like showering and doing his like hair flips, and while they're
like making
playing Hungry Eyes. It's just like the 80est of songs ever. That's interesting.
There's a lot of different points where I'm like, oh, they're just like, they're using some 80s, even like the last scene. I feel like the way the way the conflict breaks down and resolves feels very much the way 80s movies resolve.
Yeah.
Like and this, it feels very Breakfast Club.
Club.
Like everyone breaks down, and then there's like this like inspirational speech that fixes everything.
Yeah. And it's interesting too, because I think in the past we've complained about the fixes everything concept.
But what I'm saying is like they're using this trope that worked in these things and using the style of that thing to like get us there.
Right.
They don't need to do as much work because they're saying, you know how it works.
You know
here.
this trope. You can follow us.
You know it. You understand when we play this music and we have this inspirational thing and like we're throwing Benicio in this like very 80s looking wedding dress. Yeah. And it just like, I feel like they're giving us shortcuts.
Yeah. We know how those stories go, so we can follow it with minimal work. I think it's
in minimal time.
In minimal time. And that's the beauty of style and working within people's expectations.
Yes.
It brought up too when we were talking about like love, I love you, and like it's almost like we were noting it because he was saying it a lot, and at these points in time, almost like a shorthand about like something's happening here.
Yes,
something's happening here.
I think they used language, especially the phrase "I love you,"
I love you,
or "I'm in love with him."
It was like really I was marking it every time that it's like this connect the dots.
Punctuation.
It's punctuation in the scene that was like you should pay attention here. You should pay attention here. Every single time he says it, I was like, oh, what did that mean? What did that mean? Is he real? What's happening here?
I mean, and what a great one to do it because that is there's already a question of meaning around that phrase.
Yeah. It's established from the beginning. I don't know if it was real.
But
I don't know if
real life, I mean. It's just
too.
like in just how no one actually knows what love means. Like people have their definitions, but it is not tangible.
Right. Well, and we talked about this with about Carmen where it's like in French, it's like there's several ways to say it. And in English, it's just like you just say "I love you," and you can mean like a lot of things. Love means a lot of stuff. We only have one way to say it, and it could be love of friend, love of lover, love of general.
But yeah,
it's interesting.
Even with as improv-y as it feels.
Yeah.
It still uses language in an intelligent way.
Yeah.
It is in a strategic way.
Yeah. It's good.
Which I thought was really, really interesting. Like things that I picked up that I'm like, oh, you guys it's not just silly.
Yeah.
It's planned, and it's not just like, here's a general idea, go. There's really purpose and meaning.
Right. Interesting.
So
is there anything that doesn't work?
I was just about to say that.
I don't know if there is.
I mean, for us, certainly. Okay, here, but we are also, again, I wonder. It's a question of mine. If I wasn't so interested in that brand of comedy at the time when I came upon it, if I wasn't a gay man myself that have experienced some of these complicated relationships and understand what the jokes that they're saying and the things that they're making fun of, if the actual story would be communicated the same way, or if it would, again,
would it land?
Using like the 80s movies as this shortcuts. It's a lot of shortcuts. They do, I think, rely on, you to have a base of a lot of these things. And that might not be true, because there are moments that I think are just universally, I mean, they just use comedy too, and that usually gets people into.
Well, that might be,
so I might, that might be totally off base.
The brand of comedy also just might be off-putting. Like, people just might not get it. Like, I'm imagining maybe a good exercise is, well, what would my dad think if he watched it?
I don't know.
You know? Would he find it funny? He'd understand the story, but would it be as impactful? Or do you need to kind of already, is it generational too? Is it like you kind of need to have that base, like you said? You kind of need to...
But is that a problem? Is that you
no,
always
not
have
necessarily.
That's all storytelling.
But that's I guess that's a counter to you say, there's its weakness is the fact that if you don't have, a cultural primer on this, you're not going to get it.
Yeah. And it's not even not going to get it, but it's like the D&D movie. Like, without the primer of Dungeons and Dragons, will you still enjoy it? Yes. I still believe so. Yeah. And looking at Caleb Gallo, I think so. I'm less sure about it.
Yeah, I mean, it might just be off-putting because of the content matter. Like, it's
that's always good, but that's not even what I mean. Like, that's always going to be something that's going to get in the way.
Right.
But like, if you're not connecting to it,
does it actually mean anything?
Be impactful? I don't know. Or is it just going to be, if you're can it be entertaining even if you're not off put by it? Yeah, like, and I believe that the comedy is. I think funny. It's very funny. There's parts that I think are just kind of universally funny, but
I do too.
I don't know.
But there's like,
it's just a question.
I imagine my dad watching it, and I think, he might say, nothing happened. Like, this wasn't about anything, and maybe that's like speaks to that connection piece where it's like, well, if you don't actually connect to it, it just looks like it's nonsense.
Right. Yeah. If you're not connecting to it, you don't
people
see
saying like weird things all the time.
Massive things that happen in small everyday changes.
Right.
Unless you like connect with the material, you're not going to really see that.
Yeah. Because it isn't really like big stuff. I mean, it is kind of, but it's
some
just,
of it.
Some of it's big, but it's just like, and that would be the things that you could latch onto and be like, what? Well, why did he do that? Yeah. But it's kind of like when you're not of a mind of that kind of, I just don't know if everyone would have this conversation about it,
Yes. Sure.
If they would have, it's like if we, I don't know, brought someone else in, they would be like, I don't know, I didn't even see all that.
Of course. I mean,
I don't know. I think I hold that there's not a whole lot to complain about in it.
Yeah, it's pretty. I mean, part of it is it's short.
It's brief.
It's really concise.
It doesn't overstay its welcome. It's always a strength, and it feels complete. It doesn't feel like they gypped me.
No. It feels like a good, strong arc of things.
Yeah.
I mean, I could see, again, where there's elements of camp, and there's just like moments that I think that give people permission to be like, that's just not real, or that's just like, it does, but like, I don't really see that as a flaw. Yeah. If it's used well, even if other people don't understand it.
Right.
If it felt like truly unapproachable, then maybe I'd feel that way. But I think the comedy is there that it is approachable.
Yeah.
I think so.
Would we call this a love story?
Sure. I mean, it maybe feels like what, I don't know if Bros was trying to do this, but like, it's doing a thing where it feels like this is what a love story looks like when it's not one boy, one girl monogamy.
Right.
It's like all of the complications of another love story happen and they get kind of like blown up and are more.
Yeah. It feels almost
extreme,
like
but I do think it is.
It feels almost like a marriage love story. Like that category of love story where it's like the people are already married and they have to go through a trial in their marriage. They're not technically married, but they were kind of already together. They were already met. They're now they're navigating the relationship that they've already established. It's kind of, it feels like it has more features of that than like a fresh love story. Yeah.
I don't know. It feels more to me like this is someone who is almost anti-love, and it's just taking that trope, the person that's like anti-love, anti-relationship, and instead of having them find this person that's perfect and like resolves it that way, it tries to take it and rewrite that story.
That's interesting. Yeah.
It's like it feels more like it's saying it's okay if not.
Yeah.
This thing.
Yeah. That's interesting. So I always find it interesting when there's like I'm not sure that the love story itself is actually kind of like the primary story.
Yeah,
it's kind of like a secondary thing. It's like
definitely like almost like a coming of age. Like
a there's like there's a worldview.
It's not dependent.
Flowering. There's just elements of love story that are used as kind of like a secondary underlying, thing that's happening. That's like a little bit less. It's important, obviously, but it's just like we don't actually need every part of it.
Right. Yeah. And again, I wonder if that's like we're taking a love story and instead of having it kind of resolve in the same way that, the love story genre would usually do.
Right.
Can we blow that up in a situation where monogamy is not the only ethical choice?
Right.
Can we have this like, well, the love, I mean, because the resolution is like we love each other is the resolution.
Yeah. It does end in a wedding, but but actually the end is after the wedding, right? The end is like, hey, it kind of like the rest is
because there's the big blow up actually right after the wedding.
Right. The rest is what's the phrase? The rest is change. The rest is it's like everything else doesn't matter. It's like it's all it's like we love each other and it's like kind of like whatever happens, whatever we encounter from here.
Right.
Whether you are monogamous or not monogamous or whatever, and it's like, we love each other. That's really what's important here.
And it kind of blows it up beyond romantic love.
Yeah.
It says, I think it asks the question, can a love story include the non-romantic love that's in this person's life?
Yeah. I think that's really nice too.
I do too.
I really like them. I like it by the end of the thing. I'm just like, I just like them all so much.
I'm so resistant to saying it's not a love story.
Yeah.
Because I want it to be able to be a love story. I want that to qualify.
Yeah. Kinda like buddy love almost, but there's more. It's even more than that. It is like a.
It's not just buddy love, right?
It's every form of love you could think of.
I mean, it does. It like brings you close to that, like, because even Len says something like, "I'm not into this like spiritual stuff." Like, I'm not saying this in a spiritual way. I'm saying we literally love each other.
Right. Yeah. Not being a hippie. I'm
not being a hippie.
I'm actually saying a thing. Yeah. Yeah. That it means something concrete right here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whether or not it's tangible. And that, that is kind of, it tends to be ignored in the typical love story, but people don't live in a bubble with just their romantic partner.
Right.
That's not really what love stories are.
Mm-hmm.
Love story, even marriages are about community too.
Right. Yeah.
So, I don't know. I thought it was well done.
I love it.
I love it.
Shall we do our superlatives?
Let's do it.
Superlatives.
Oscar moment.
Oscar moment. Ooh. I think the editing is excellent. I think that really does it. It keeps the pace. And it clips. I mean, it just really moves along, and it's key to them looking good, sounding good. Someone did a great job on that.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
It does. It moves. It like really
professional looking.
Along.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. It does look very professional.
Yeah.
I don't know how they produced it or why they if it's like literally
it's like just like on iMovie.
Who knows? It looks amazing.
Yeah, it does. It looks really good.
Cool. I want to say the moments of improv, there's a couple of them. This is so minor, but like the moments of improv, because it's so quick, that allow you to see the way people really talk.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's really highlighted when there's a couple scenes. One where he's like supposed to meet with like somebody else in his like school project thing. It's like a very, very short scene too.
So weird.
But he like says something and messes it up and then makes fun of himself for messing it up.
Yeah.
Something crab.
Oh my gosh. It's so stupid. Yeah.
But he says something and
so
messes
cringy.
it up, but he like keeps going with it, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, I'm trying to get a taxi cab, and I keep saying taxi crab," and like,
can you imagine a little crustacean? Yeah,
it just like allows you just can't really write some of those things in and have them feel that genuine,
right?
There's another moment where he's like maybe gonna hook up with the throuple guy.
The handsome bear.
And I don't remember what he says, but he like stumbles on his words too.
Yeah.
But instead of like, cutting that and taking some other take, we see this like very real awkward moment that we just get to live with the awkwardness of how it just doesn't come out right. And and it's not like resolved. It doesn't.
Right. It's like really good writing without having to write it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if that would be easy to write or act from that writing. That would be impossible.
Yeah. Well, we've talked about that so many times where it's like real people don't do that thing when you see that crazy thing and then you suddenly see people do it in real life and you're like, oh my God, that happens all the time.
That does happen.
But
when an actor tries to do it, it just looks or
double
feels
takes
so stupid. Yeah, double takes.
Like really classic like comedy things. Like, well, that's not real. That's just like a trope. It's like, no. And then you see it actually happen. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think the way they use improv and the way they use language, but like those moments that I'm like, I see. I don't know. I thought those were nice.
Yeah.
What about an unearned
moment?
Yeah, I know they're tricky. I mean, we just said.
Yeah.
It wasn't. It's hard because I think they do justify
just about everything. I think maybe if I were to say anything, it's Freckle is officiating their wedding, and she does her lip sync for just a little bit too long.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that.
I think I could probably do with less of it. But otherwise.
Yeah, I think my one thing is when because it made me question the tone or the what we're actually looking at when his parents are at the wedding and the mom is very similar in comedic style in the way she was talking.
Yeah.
And she's kind of out of the world.
Right.
Of course, connected to him. So maybe it's just like part of his world, part of like the way he sees it. But it made me question, are all of his friends these kooky weirdos? Or is this his weird lens of seeing the world?
Right. Benicio's the only real thing in the world and everybody else is kooky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm not sure because like I certainly think there's commentary about this actor LA gay culture. I think there's definitely some making fun of and some commentary and some playful ribbing at this culture that he's surrounded with. Like it's like about that, but that moment where I'm like, but they're not that.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm overthinking. I'm sure I am. But that was a moment that I'm like, wait, what is this? What is that? Is that just a joke?
Yeah.
Now is that just a joke? That's how that moment felt.
Right. Yeah.
I was like, why is that character like that exactly? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
And it might, that's literally a tiny little.
Yeah, I know. It's so nitpicky.
Nothing,
Both of those are really nitpicky because it's like, again, the episodes are so short. It's like having Freckles sing too long is like she sang for 3 seconds too long. So small. Yeah, I think it's great. Let's do one more. We have to talk about Freckle.
What's the best Freckle moment?
Best
let's do it.
Freckle moment.
I mean,
oh my God, there's so many good ones. It's, I think,
what are you gonna pick? I literally don't know.
We already mentioned.
So there's a scene in the car.
Gosh, she tells this whole story about her night previous, and it's just
like little
silly.
And she's recounting,
and these like interjections in their conversation. They're like in an Uber going to the airport to pick up Benicio, and the interjections when it's like you're seeing it as she's telling the story, it's being acted out, and then you have them like have the conversation when they kind of come out of the conversation, and it's just the silliest thing. Hopefully we can drop some of it here, but it's just so good. Oh my gosh!
Oh, it's so good.
You're a pizza.
You're a pizza.
I'm a pizza.
Yes.
Freckle is at an audition and is, I don't know, drunk? Maybe?
Yes.
I don't know. Is it drunk?
On.
She's drunk on something. I'm not sure. She's taken every single drug there is. And
that's what she says.
Yes. And she like has a wig to be the redheaded mom. It's so crazy.
So silly.
But then as she's like getting up, she's like, it's time for her to audition. She says, I'm a star. And Caleb says, you're a pizza. And then she just repeats it. She just keeps repeating the things that Caleb says. It's so silly. And it's like such another actory thing where it's like, you're a star. I'm a star. It's like those affirmations, but the last affirmation is that she's a pizza. It's just so silly.
It's so silly. I think mine is when they're in the hot springs and they take Benicio. When Benicio gets there off the plane, they go right to the hot springs, and they're in this monogamous relationship, and there's a guy in the hot tub that starts to kind of hit on everyone.
Yeah.
And Caleb's like, oh yeah, Freckle's a masterpiece, and this guy's like, no, you're a masterpiece. And then they're flirting, and it's getting real tense with Benicio, because it's clear that Caleb is showing that he's interested in this person outside of the relationship, and Benicio is like getting really offended because Caleb already agreed to be monogamous.
Right.
And Freckle just goes, I'm bored. I'm leaving.
So good.
She's not like, oh, this is uncomfortable. Like, maybe I should go. Do you guys need some space? It's like the attention's off of me right now.
So funny. Oh my God. It's so good.
It's perfect. It's just so
Freckle
good.
is the best.
Freckle's
the best.
Ugh.
There's so many good moments. I mean, everybody shines in it. It's like it's really impressive. I like it a lot.
Really, yeah.
So go check that out. It's for free. It's on YouTube and it's short. Do it.
Also, shout out to Stephanie Koenig's faces.
Oh my gosh.
Because she goes through like 17 emotions in just like one
so
face.
So good.
And she can hold like...
There's like that moment when she finds out that Billy and Caleb hooked up. Her reaction is, I'm like, did Stephanie
that
know?
Might be like,
did Stephanie know that was part of the story? I don't know. Like, I feel like it's like a genuine surprise and it actually happened and it's crazy.
It made me, like, I think, okay, that's a great, I know we're wrapping up, but one of the points I was going to make is that use of language, that use of this insincere language, when we get to these moments where we see the reality just like shoving its way through, it's like when it can't be hidden under like the mask of like
you see her really unravel.
Ooh, it's so, I think that scene, because like actually Billy, that actor, he does a similar thing where like he's very like masked most of the time, and seeing the real emotions just like, again, like feel like they're crawling through, it is really effective.
It is. It's like, oh my gosh, it just got real. Things got real just now.
Crazy.
Yeah. Pretty great. Highly recommended.
Yes.
Thank you all so much for watching. This has been Then a Moment. I'm Pavi Proczko. And remember, I'm a pizza.
And I am Colin Funk. And remember, sometimes things that are expensive are worse.
Bye.
Goodbye. So stupid.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Then a Moment, a Pavitas production project, hosted by Colin Funk and Pavi Proczko. This podcast is produced by Chicago Podcast Studio. Our opening cartoon was created by Gloriu, and our theme song was composed by me, Pavi Proczko. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite listening platform. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok at Then a Moment Pod, all one word, for updates on new episodes and behind-the-scenes content. If you have any feedback, comments, concerns, or kudos, you can email us at thenamomentpod@gmail.com. Please rate and review us wherever you can. It would help us out a bunch. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.